Hello, my name is Tejas, and I am from Lasalle School of the Arts. For my presentation today, I will be doing Topeng. What is Topeng? Topeng is a Balinese form of mass dance drama. Watch as I entertain you with my presentation. Thank you.
Bye!
So, what is Topeng? Topeng is a Balinese form of dance drama which originated in the 15th century. The earliest recordings of the performance in Bali dates back to 896 AD to a copper plate called the Parasti Bebetin. This copper plate was inscribed with the term Pertapukan, which refers to a mass dancer. It is unclear, however, whether it was a direct reference to Topeng, but we know that masks were present in that era. The earliest known record of Topeng can be traced back to the 1600s, whereby Topeng was documented in the royal courts of Gelgel, a village in East Bali. Topeng is performed mainly at temples for festivals, but the form can be performed anywhere. There are two types of Topeng, Topeng Pajegan and Topeng Pancha. Topeng Pajegan is a one-man show, whereby a single actor takes on all the roles by changing masks. Topeng Pajegan is considered sacred and performed mainly in temples in front of the shrine. It is reserved for performers who have been through the necessary Hindu ceremonies and has all the relevant knowledge. Topeng Pancha, on the other hand, is considered less sacred and can be performed by a small ensemble of up to 5 performers. The word Topeng literally translates to mask and is a feature employed in other Balinese forms such as Wayang Wong, Prembon, and Calon Arang. In 1938, the famous French theatre theorist Antonin Artaud described Topeng performers as animated hieroglyphs. This is a very fitting description, as Topeng is a form that chronicles Balinese history. Topeng also reflects topical and modern issues, usually narrated by the clown characters. Through improvised comical dialogue, the clowns can discuss anything from topical dirty jokes to actual corrupt politicians. Topeng reenacts the lives of Balinese ancestors, and hence, the Balinese believe that these ancestral spirits come down to watch Topeng when it is performed. They believe that by reenacting the lives of their ancestors, they get to worship, celebrate, and request blessings from their ancestors. This is Topeng Keras Pate. Topeng Keras is a rough style. Pate means minister. This is Topeng Tua, the old man character. But here we have the two comical servants to the king, the Penasar. This is Punta, and this is Wijil. Let me introduce you to Punta and Wijil. And now we have the most sacred of all the Topeng masks, the Siddhakarya. The Siddhakarya is basically the last character that will appear on the Topeng stage. He will come out and he will send back the ancestral spirits back to where they are from. He is known as a gatekeeper and will close the gate between the spiritual world and the living world. Meet Siddhakarya. Last but not least, we have the characters of the clowns. As you can see, the mask is a half mask so that the characters and the actors can speak. Until the 1900s, Topeng was mainly oral history and passed down through teaching from master to student. Topeng does not really have any key directors or playwrights, as it does not adhere to conventional Western structures in drama. During an interview with Dr. Irvin Johnson, a professor of Southeast Asian Studies at NUS, who is also a Topeng performer, I asked him, who are the key figures, directors and playwrights of Topeng? To which he replied, that's using a Western analysis to understand a non-Western art form, which should not be the case. There was no concept of playwrights or stage directions. The stories told in Topeng are histories of the Balinese kings from the Majapahit kingdom down to the 18th century. I went on to question Dr. Irvin about the key performers of Topeng, and he told me about Nyoman Kakul, a famous and beloved Topeng performer. Pak Kakul passed away in 1982 and was known to enliven the mass beyond anyone else in his time. Dr. Johnson told me about the Balinese concept of taksu, which can be described as a divine intervention or the X factor, to put it simply. The concept of taksu can be linked to presence or energy in Western theatre conventions. Pak Kakul was known to embody taksu. Topeng performers who did well would often work with the kings and tour around the 9 kingdoms of Bali to work with the kings, perform for them, and as well as train performers in their respective kingdoms. Now I'll be talking about influences and movements. It is unclear what the main influences of Topeng were, but we know for a fact that the main influence of Topeng is Balinese ancestral history. It is believed that when the Hindu kings from the Majapahit Empire came to Bali from Java to settle down, they brought along their texts and stories. Additionally, the Majapahit kings brought Javanese masks, which Balinese mask makers conformed to. There is also an influence from Hinduism as traders, sailors, scholars, and priests came to Indonesia in the 1st century from India. While Topeng has some notable similarities to Indian forms such as Kudiyatam and Kathakali, such as the hand gestures, the mudras, and the explosive movements, it is unclear whether the early settlers from India brought these dance forms to Indonesia.
According to Dr. Johnson, the key feature of Topeng movement is the transition of body weight between the left and the right. The movement in Topeng is very sharp, angular, and explosive at times. The hand gestures comprise of finger movements and tensing of the fingers. The shoulders have to be constantly lifted up, and the dancer has to be tense and in character throughout. The feet are spread apart, and the center of the performer is lowered. Even though the performer is wearing a mask, the eyes have to be very much alive and moving. A Topeng performer can use slight inclinations and tilting of the head to show different points of focus. Now, I'll be talking about the socio-political factors that affected Topeng. Let's take it back to Lasalle.
This mask right here is a cheap Topeng mask that can be purchased at a souvenir store in Bali. This mask will lead me to my next point, how the Dutch commodified the Topeng drama and turned it into a form to make revenue from tourists. To understand this phenomenon, we need to go back to the 1900s when the Dutch colonized Bali. Let's go!
The Dutch had colonized most of Indonesia, but Bali, being a land of warriors, refused to give in. On September 1906, the Royal Dutch Army marched to the palace of Denpasar to claim the kingdom. However, the king of Denpasar refused to surrender and called for puputan, the Balinese term for a mass ritual suicide to avoid the humiliation of surrender. Other Balinese kingdoms followed suit and others surrendered. Finally, in 1908, the Royal Court of Klungkung performed the puputan when the Dutch marched to its palace. Klungkung was the last remaining kingdom, and sadly, the Dutch forces had fully colonized and seized control of Bali. The Netherlands caught news of the brutalities and were outraged at the conduct of their army. So was the rest of Europe and even America. The Dutch army was under immense pressure to make amends. The Dutch decided to commodify the Bali experience as an art and cultural hub under the premise of preserving the culture of the people they had massacred. However, this was a political move to gain revenue and turn Bali into a paradise island to conceal and write off the horrendous war crimes they had committed. Linking this back to Topeng, the Dutch encouraged the Balinese to use the art form such as Topeng to draw the tourists in for revenue.
According to Dr. Johnson, Topeng is intermittently tied to Balinese religion and is integral in Balinese festivals. Topeng's role was to complete festivals and ceremonies, appeasing and worshipping Balinese ancestral spirits. Secondly, it was a form of entertainment for the royal court. And lastly, it was used to entertain the commoners and to inform them of local news through the characters of the clowns who discussed topical issues. Lastly, I'll be talking about Topeng's relevance to contemporary theatre. While it is still performed traditionally, Topeng is now used by theatre practitioners and theatre students around the world as a means of improving their physicality, stage presence, and technique as performers. After watching Topeng at a convention in Paris in 1931, the famous theatre theorist Antonin Artaud was inspired by it and drew influence from it to develop his theatre form, Theatre of Cruelty. The form of Topeng was created to tell the narratives of Balinese kings of the past. However, in today's context, Topeng is being used to tell different narratives and histories. For example, last year, Dr. Irving Johnson from NUS and Balinese Topeng performers were commissioned by the Esplanade to perform a Topeng performance for Singapore's bicentennial celebration. Dr. Johnson curated a piece revolving around the narrative of Sang Nila Utama
an Indonesian prince who is a key figure in Singapore's history. His piece included characters who spoke Singlish, Singapore's colloquial language. Hence, we see how the traditional form of Topeng is performed in a contemporary context, but still with adherence to its structures and conventions. Additionally, Topeng has also given birth to contemporary forms such as Bondress. Bondress is made to appease the 21st century taste and takes inspiration from the clown characters in Topeng. In Bondress, performers discuss current events and interact directly with the audience in a comical and entertaining manner. Bondress has even been used in television broadcasts. For example, it was used in the anti-AIDS campaign and has also been used in commercial advertising. In conclusion, it is evident that Topeng is still shaping contemporary theatre in numerous ways.